Could we have a hand for Dr. Larry Jebrock? Why don't you say
Gary.
1, 2, 3 in your microphone, make sure it works.
3, 2, 1.
He does things differently.
I'm going to spend a little bit of time, Larry and I are going to have kind of like a conversation to begin this with, only because we've had it before, and to me it's fascinating, so we can kind of lock this off that way. You are an optometrist in Novato, California, which is about 30 minutes above the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco?
That is correct, Gary.
Good. And somehow or other you got onto EFT, and you and I had some conversations a year or two ago, and then I contacted you 4 months ago or something like that?
Pretty close, yeah.
Okay. I was fascinated by Larry because instead of being the, don't put words in your mouth, but the typical optometrist, when people come in, will basically just take some measurements of the eye and give you a prescription.
This has been the process for a long time. Most eye care has been as though the eyes were separate from the body. So when you treated the person, you treated their eyes, not the person, which meant you basically measured, the powers, the focus, came up with a prescription for that point in time, which would vary, by the way, from moment to moment and from doctor to doctor to some degree. And then you'd get that prescription, and if it was a good doctor, he checked the health of your eyes, made sure there was no disease, and you were out the door, and typically within 20 minutes, because that's the practice management profile. It's about 20 minutes under present-day conditions.
Beyond that, you're losing money or something.
Right, efficiency-wise, that's the thinking.
Sure, okay.
I don't have that thinking.
Yeah, I know you don't. That's why you're here.
That's right.
On the other hand, you have recognized that the people's emotions have a great deal to do with their vision.
Right.
In fact, what I did here, if I could put this on our email list, I came into your office maybe 2 months ago, and you had 4 of your patients there. And you did some measurements of their vision.
Right.
Before we did, we spent the better part of an afternoon.
Yeah.
And you just kind of let
It was a
loose.
blast, by the way.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
And so the better part of an afternoon, and I worked with these 4 people. And by the way, what I was doing was not working on their eyesight. I was not having to say, even though, my eyesight isn't so good or whatever, like that kind of thing. I wasn't having to do that. I just simply worked on their emotional issues, whatever they wanted to bring up. And you took measurements afterwards, and I think their vision, by those measurements, improved 30%.
Some more, some a little less, but there was an average of about 30%, yes.
Yeah, okay. We don't know, or maybe you do know, whether or not that held up over time, or was it temporary? Do you know?
I don't know, but I have a lot of comments about that at some point. Yeah.
Comment now.
Well, it brings to mind one patient, one that you worked with. Her name begins with a V, Val, And Valerie is one of the most amazing people I've ever met. She steadfastly worked with her eyes and vision for 20 years, using different techniques, mostly Bates techniques. And can you imagine her commitment to spend about an hour every day for 20 years, improving her? I mean, it's unbelievable. And when she got to me, which was about 5 years ago, she had done pretty well. She had improved her vision, I think about from 2400 to 2100. And we did some more things. We used a shaping lens to shape her eye, and she got down to 20/20 vision. And then all of a sudden, without too much clear reason, she lost it, back to 20/80. And then for a year, we had 2 problems. We could not find a replacement shaping lens, which is used as a retainer, and I'll talk about that, which is unheard of. I mean, it's a duplicate lens. Almost always you could find one, but she rejected it. She had one that worked, and we could never make a duplicate, so she was in terrible fear that if she ever lost her retainer lens, her vision was gone, and it was over. Some year and a half ago, we did EFT in the office. Her vision, which was not holding up at that point, went right back to clear, 20/20, 20/25. It was the only thing we did differently, and her vision held. Then it got lost again. Didn't hold, it held for a couple of weeks. Hence, you saw her
2 months ago
yeah,
or something.
2 months ago. And we did EFT. Her vision improved some, and we're still working on her. I don't know exactly where she is right now. But I've seen EFT. That was one of the most dramatic things I've seen. We worked intensively with everything we knew, and the only thing that brought her vision back, and the only thing that was different, was EFT for that particular person. It did not hold, but it held for a while. Something else came up. Yeah.
I have a speculation on that. There are a lot of people will have a physical thing, like they get a sore neck or something in their back. I call it the weak point in their body. Or if they've had an accident and hurt their shoulder, that's like a weak point in their body.
Right.
And oftentimes their emotional issues will show up in that, let's say that shoulder, for example, as a weak point in the body. I mean, it just kind of shows up there.
Right.
It would be my guess, one reason when we do vision EFT, that you may get temporary results, is that I'm not going to call it a weak point in the body, but it is so sensitive to so many things and to emotions that it can often show up there. And so what is an improvement now may not be an improvement later because other things show up. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just putting out a speculation. Does it work?
Possibility.
Does it work?
Possibility, yeah.
Well, I remember before I ever met you, people would ask me about vision, and I haven't done that much with it. I remember some people would come to me after a break and say, what about this for vision? And so what I'd have them do is take a magazine, and I'd have them hold it at a place without their glasses where they could read it. They could read it right there. No, I beg your pardon. I'd have them put it just beyond where they could read.
Right.
I can't quite make it out there and remember where that was. Then we go tap, 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 tap.
Right.
And now they can read it.
Right.
Now that's a mini thing, that's a mini test, but I could do that with great frequency. Okay?
Sure.
I don't know how long that holds and so on. So.
Right.
But anyway, then there's another fellow that we worked with, Todd, he's a good friend of mine, okay, who is, without his lenses or glasses, is legally blind.
Very much so. His vision was about 2600. His prescription was about a minus...
He's in his early 40s, by the way.
In early 40s, his prescription's a -6 or -7, which means that without glasses on, the furthest you could see is approximately 6 to 7 inches. Everything after that's blurry. So he had some significant reduction in clarity. By the way, I had to comment that after I did this whole analysis with vision, we found out that his eyes were reflecting tightness and wanting to control everything. You mentioned that without having to go through that analysis, but I thought that was very interesting.
Well, actually, I'd done EFT with Todd prior to him coming in to do the analysis, et cetera, with you.
Okay.
On some emotional issues.
Okay.
And we're not sure whether that particular session with EFT helped anything or not at this point, but he uncovered a lot of emotional issues that are likely contributors.
Right.
But then when he came to you, you had him do a whole. He was fascinated by the number of things you had him do.
Right.
You had him do something with his eyes, and one of them had to do with his mother, and one had to do with his father, and one of them had to do with fear. Because the eyes were moving in different directions. I forgot what that was, but one of them was like fear, and that plugged in perfectly to what he and I had previously talked about.
Oh. Right.
But do you remember what that was, and can you expand on that? One of the left eye, as I recall it, would get lazy and go to one side, and wouldn't play well.
Right. I'm trying to remember, Gary. What I recall about Todd. Well, there was a whole bunch of things, but basically, the left eye is kind of the receiving eye. The left eye is the yin eye, the mother eye, the receptive eye. And what was interesting about Todd is that he had all of the aspects of an intuitive, more musical, more right brain kind of individual, except that he had the high degree of nearsightedness, which is really typical of, more organizational left brain survival kind of functioning. So there he was, now it's coming back to me.
It's coming back to me too, go ahead.
Thanks, you're right. So what it was is he was really a left eye dominant person, and his
meaning right brain.
Meaning more right brain in this particular case. And he was, but his job was very much involved with analysis and money and things of this sort. So he always felt like a fish out of water, because there he was really doing that kind of work because for whatever reason, but he felt like he was really more of an intuitive, right brain kind of individual. So he was kind of stuck. He always felt like he was just never in the right place.
Yeah, this is part of where EFT can really be a big help, because what he and I had done while you were waiting to come into your office, we were sitting here talking about these things, and it turns out that when he was a youngster, he got in trouble in school because he was very creative. Mm-hmm. He used to love to draw and do all kinds of things, act up in class, and it was this creative. Although he could have been creative in a more acceptable manner. Right. But what he finally did was he discovered that if he would just play the game by the rules, left brain, then he was accepted and so on. So he, in his terms, he sold out. But here's this creative part, which you can see with the left eye, which is just not being used. He's afraid to use it, and he sold out.
In fact, that's right. He suppressed the left eye, and we'll talk about suppression. But, suppression means that with both of your eyes open, basically only one is inputting at a time, centrally. So with both eyes open, the left eye, which he was tending to suppress, which means he was overly using the right, and which influenced more the left brain. So, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
At any rate, I'm going to get off stage here in a second, but to finish up with Todd, you had him do some lens shaping.
Oh, yeah, right.
And his vision went from like 2600 to almost good enough to pass his driver's test.
It did.
Overnight.
One night.
Yeah.
Todd came to the office. We spent about 3 or 4 hours working and training. Can I get up for a second just to show you what? We have various lenses that we use in getting the eyes to relax or position differently. For example, this is lenses that have some plus power or relaxing power, like you buy in, Dina Dell glasses in the drugstore. The others are an opposite prescription that are minus power, so it throws the eyes the other way. So we teach people how to use their eyes, train their muscles, relax their muscles, tighten their muscles, so that you get this whole movement of release and contraction. And it works best with lenses. Lenses work better than anything else I've seen. So at some point, and then also we'll use what we call a doubling prism. This is a 12 diopter prism. We use this with Todd too. You would put it on your eye, and you'd put the thick part so that it goes to the side of your eye. It's really very simple. And what happens is you'll see double at first. But then, all of a sudden, if you can release your eyes and let go at a different level, the double will go to 1. And what your eyes are really doing are they're going out. They're turning out. And whenever your eyes turn out, it relaxes your focusing muscles and it brings your vision further out. So we've got little tools that are simple that we teach people how to use, that they take home with them, and they practice, and they change the way their eyes work. And we did those with Todd, by the way, and we shaped his eye overnight. We put on a contact lens that molds the eye. It does what surgery does without the surgery. You wake up in the morning, you take it off, and your eye's in a new shape. And it's a miracle, literally overnight. And then basically Todd's vision almost went the first night to 2040, 2050. One more line, it's a driver's license. But usually that keeps improving for 3 weeks, so I expect that Todd will be at 2020. And that's a -6 diopter eye. So -3s, -2s, -4s, they go down to 2020 like this now. And then the goal, though, is you're not finished. The goal is, how do you hold it and keep it? How do you use the retainer lens as little as possible? So that's what we're up to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I'm going to get off here, but you're going to spend time talking about the eyes and how the emotions affect it
Yeah.
and all the other things that go into that. So,
With pleasure.
I will get off of here, and you'll get on here, and I'll take this chair off. And
Okay.
one thing we do want to indicate, Larry loves to have questions, so please stand behind your microphones because you like it to be conversational.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We'll talk a little bit, and then we'll open up things to questions, because I think we'll learn a lot by questions, and I'll learn a lot by questions, I know that, and comments. And we'll do this is what I'd like to do. I want to teach you all some concepts about vision that might be a little different than you hold. And I would like to also have everybody do some processes, some exercises. I'd like to tell you how I use EFT a bit with vision. And I'm sure that many of you will add your creativity and use it in other ways. And I'd like you all to leave here today having a different viewpoint about what you would do for your own eyes and how you'd work with your own clients, and start improving your own eyes beginning today. So that's what I hope to leave you with. So, Brian, let's see. I think that, yeah, we could just leave that up for a second. What's that? Can't read it. Yeah, bear with me. What happened was we put together a few of these transparencies. We didn't have them, so they're different sizes. So it's going to be kind of hard in the back to read. Anybody, you know something? Anybody who would like to bring a chair up and come up closer around. Why don't we do it now? Anybody who feels like they'd like to, you're more than welcome to. That one, I'd probably be using a little different, the smaller one, you know, Brian? So you want this off the stage? Yeah, let's take that off, thank you. So I want to just tell you a little bit how delighted I am to be here. First of all, in my talking to people who have a background in therapy, emotional work, psychotherapy, is such a privilege, because when I'm usually talking to eye doctors, they usually have such a strong bias that does not include as much of that, that when I talk to you, I feel like I'm going to be learning a lot, whereas when I talk to the eye doctors, they don't understand this stuff. So most of you are much further out in your thinking and more developed than I am in many ways. So I appreciate that. I was here, this is like a homecoming for me. 30 years ago, when I got out of optometry school, I worked on the Navajo Indian Reservation in Tuba City, Arizona. Spent the most amazing 2 years of my life from New York City. I was scared to death when I first drove into Tuba City. My post for 2 years, it was the U.S. Public Health Service. My heart was going like this. I thought I'd never live there. I just wanted to find a shoe store or anything out there. They did not have any. It was a trading post and a hospital. And so I had an amazing 2 years, though, with medicine men, and I used to fly to different parts of the reservation and deal with trachoma, which is a disease that was only prevalent on the Indian reservations here, where it would cause blindness. And we worked with psychiatrists, psychologists, all kinds of hospital personnel. It was a wonderful experience. So this is the first time I'm back in this area for 30 years. And driving back in from Phoenix, I was listening to oldies from the 60s and 70s. I was here in the 70s. I was really freaking out. It was like, what is going on? It was riot. So I got into this field because of my own problems. Does that sound familiar to anybody? My problems were, well, it started early. It was a very nervous mother during pregnancy, but I'm not going to go completely there. It was an absent father, pretty much, who loved me a lot, but he was coming home from war, didn't know if he was going to be coming home. Then he was working most of the time. And anyway, my story was that I had this lazy eye, a lazy right eye that wandered out about 20 degrees, which wasn't visible. 20 degrees is usually not visible. You need about 25 till you could say that person's wall-eyed. And what happened is that This condition basically was unconscious to me. The unconsciousness around people's eyes and vision is huge, absolutely huge. The problem was that I thought everybody kind of saw the way I did, which was they had to go back and reread things. If they covered one eye, it was blurry out of the other eye. I thought that was normal. If you saw double at certain times, that was normal. And if you were very inconsistent at hitting a baseball, that was normal. And if you didn't want to look for too long at things because it was uncomfortable, that was normal. So I didn't know that all of those things were a result of the fact that I was having trouble using my eyes. And when I found out about that, which was in my teenage years, well, by the way, the biggest part about that emotionally is that when you have your brain shutting off one eye most of the time, you're pushed all the way over to the other side. I mean, you're pushed over energetically. So you're off center. Emotionally, you're off balance. And particularly if it's your right eye, because your right eye is the one that's more associated with stimulating left brain thinking frequently. So my right eye was suppressed, which is more of the yang kind of behavior. So it made me more, I think, more soft, more emotional. I would cry more than other people. I was a tough kid, but I would cry. I was sensitive to everything. I was always an emotional type of person. But I was always off balance. I had one side that really wasn't taking in information. And I was really very farsighted. We'll talk about what that meant. So basically, that's how I got in this field, and it's taken me into places of performance, how vision relates to performance, how vision relates to emotion, how vision relates to your inner seeing. And I've gone there from day one. That's all I've ever done, was really work with vision and performance and improvement. After I got out of optometry school, I went into the public health service. I spent some time at the Cassell Institute of Child Development, where they were studying performance. And for 30 years, basically, we've had a practice that concentrated on people seeing without glasses or improving their eyes or working with children who have reading problems. So ostensibly, that's why most people come. A couple of quick facts about eyes that fascinated me. First of all, if you graduate high school, the chances of you losing your distance vision to nearsightedness is about 35%. So 35% high school graduates can't see far away. And it's a huge thing, really, to give up your distance vision. I mean, the energy involved in creating losing your distance vision is so amazing. I mean, it's just accepted. Well, he can't see, get glasses. But it's not like that. The unconsciousness involved in losing your vision is huge because it's happening typically over a long period of time. But 35% of people will lose their distance vision, and frequently unnecessarily so if they graduate high school. The statistics are, if you go to college, you've got a chance between 45 and 50% will lose your distance vision to nearsightedness. And if you go to graduate school, it's up close to 65% will lose their distance vision due to so I find that amazing. It's an epidemic, really, of losing your distance vision. So it seems normal to lose your distance vision. The eyes, which are 4 ounces each globe, process about 25% of the oxygen that the heart does. In other words, it is a huge oxygen processor. You've got heart, brain, and eyes. So if your eyes are tired, or if you're using a lot of energy with your eyes, it's going to cost you. Big oxygen processors. The other thing that's amazing is that the act of seeing actually lights up about 70% of your brain. So the wiring in the vision system and in the brain is huge for vision. vision really, wiring-wise, is meant to dominate. And single binocular vision in humans is meant to dominate. And at some level, to the degree that your vision is working well, and I'm talking about not just your eyesight at this point, but that your vision is working well, you're more efficient. You're going to see more, you're going to remember more, you're going to be faster. And a new thing that's just come up that I think will be very useful here is that there's a test called a visual contrast sensitivity test, which is basically a bunch of grid patterns of blacks, white, and grays. And you could see a pattern when your eye is sensitive enough. Otherwise, it just looks all gray. And they're using this test now because the eyes are so sensitive that if you're toxic, if anything, if you're studying any toxicity problem or cleansing your body, what you'd want to do before is take this simple visual contrast sensitivity test. And you say, well, you could see all of A, B, C, and D. You would cleanse your body, retake the test again, and if your body is cleansed, it'll show up on the retina because you'll be able to see more of these contrast sensitivities. So they're now using the eye, basically, because it's so sensitive, as a measure of toxicity. So I think that might have a place with everything, allergies, cleansings, and so forth, and it's something that anybody can incorporate into their practice. Okay. I think that, why don't we do this to start, just a little break and stuff. Since the first thing I do when anybody comes in the office is I like to look at their eyes. And that's the first thing I do is I look at their eyes. So I want everybody here to grab a partner and stand up. Grab a partner and stand up. And see if you can get close to some light where you could see somebody's eyes. And any way that you could see, best without glasses if you could see somebody's eyes well enough. I can't really. I've been working on it for 30 years.
If it's blurry, is that good enough?
If you could see well enough.
Okay, I need my glasses.
If you could see well, yeah. Okay, look with your glasses if you need to. So this is what I'd like you to do. For me and for everybody else, I'm sure everybody talks about eye contact, and eyes tell you a lot, and they're the path to the soul. So why don't we just look, first, why don't somebody declare themselves A's? Who wants to be the A's in your group? Be an A? Okay, so the A's will go first. The A's will go first. The B's, if you would look at first the right eye of your A partner, and just look at that eye and see what it's telling you. What is that eye saying? Is it happy, tired, scared, worried? What kind of experience is that right eye telling you right now? Just look. Just kind of hang with it. And then I'd like you, after another moment or so, is switch to the left eye. What is this eye telling you? What is the left eye saying to you? Absolutely. If your partner wants to know, please share it with your partner after. No, I think we had enough of that already, huh? Anatomy of the eye? Good, we can go to that one. Okay, this is nice. Now, hold on for a second and switch, and the A's can look at the B's. Start with the right eye. Switch to the left. What are your eyes saying to me? Let's see. Oh, there's a great spirit in that right eye. There's a great spirit there. Yeah. Okay, so let's wrap it up. Anybody notice a difference between what the two eyes are saying? Hands? Yes? Anybody want to share some of the eye talk? Anybody want to go up and share?
We made a very interesting discovery.
Yes.
And that is when I was looking into his right eye, I was using my right eye to do the looking. And when I was looking into his left eye, I used my left eye to do
isn't
the
that
looking.
interesting?
And he did the same thing when he was looking at me, quite unconsciously.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that one. Yeah. Wowee, huh?
And I
Any
know-
differences between the eyes?
Well, and this was a question, because I was wondering if it was my projection or not, but I very much felt him in the world when I looked at his right eye, and very much felt his soul when I looked into his left eye. But I know that for me, when I am in an intimate connection, I always look into the left eye. But I didn't know that I used different eyes to do this.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for sharing that one. Yeah.
I noticed that
1 second.
her left eye was very clear, like it was really seeing me, and that the right eye seemed to be more out of focus and looking beyond me.
Great. Thank you.
I saw the right eye that I was looking at looked like it wanted to run. It was kind of hiding and smaller and unfocused. And the left eye looked like it wanted to stand and fight. And it was alert and intense and ready.
Thank you.
The partner that I was working with, she noticed that my left eye was very clear. My right eye was a little foggy. And I had noticed over the last 3 or 4 days that I'm having a little bit of fogginess as I'm looking with my right eye. And then with her, she was having an allergic reaction to poison ivy. And when it first started, just taking her sunglasses off was quite painful, and it was tearing, and then it adjusted. And as we talked, I could actually see I wouldn't call it the swelling, but the droop of the eyelid, if you will. Probably worked up 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, just as we were kind of relaxing, just looking at each other, and it appeared like she got a lot more comfortable with the swelling. So.
Interesting. Thank you. We have any other mics here? No. Yeah.
Hi, Larry.
Hi.
Oops. Looks like I need to
Yeah.
a little bit. Here we go. I had a very interesting experience with what my person found on me. She said, your right eye looks very tired. And I've sensed tiredness for the last few days on many levels. Plus, I've also been an analyst most of my life, and I've just retired from doing analytical work because it was really draining me. Then she said the left eye looked very open. In the last few months since I've been away from doing the work that I've done most of my life, I've discovered abilities to paint, to do all sorts of things, and I'm getting ready to open a practice. It was funny, after the first day or two here, along with the tiredness, I noticed in the evenings that my eyesight was really bothering me. I wear contacts, I've got 2600 vision, and it's like the whole world is like too bright right now. And I was going, there's something going on with my vision here.
Wow.
So I think releasing some of the emotional things here has made some changes.
Sure sounds like it, huh?
Can't wait to change the contacts, though.
Right, you do. In fact, that's how you want to, that's the way you work with it. You got to be thinking about your eyes are in dynamic change. You want to be leading them all the time with your prescriptions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, right. Leading your eyes to where you want them to go, not following them to where they're going. So that's the first, yeah? Okay, so the first bit of eye training that I want to leave you with today is that every morning, what I'd like you to do is go in the mirror, or get a small mirror, and I'd like you to hold it up so that you basically don't see your facial expression, your mouth, just your eyes. And look at your right eye and ask what it's telling, see what it wants to say to you this morning. And look at your left eye and see what it would like to tell you this morning. And also just, you can ask questions of your eyes too, you could talk to your eyes in the morning, whatever's appropriate. So actually look at your eyes and use them for feedbacks of your state of mind, how they look. I think we're doing this all the time when we talk to people, meet people. We're always trying to see their soul through their eyes anyway, Okay. Can we turn this slide on? All right. So I want to teach you about some of the aspects of the eye so you could see how working with the eyes, particularly emotionally, might have an effect on it. Not might, does have an effect on it. You've got, let's start here. You've got the cornea, which is the front surface of the eye. And then, let's go, this is the lens of the eye. That's what becomes opaque or less clear when you develop cataract. So you've got the lens, you've got the cornea. And you've got this huge muscle. It circles the lens. It's called the ciliary muscle. It's a big muscle in your eyes. And then the back, this whole big chamber is called the vitreous. And then this back area is all nerve cells, the retina. So, what's interesting is that this muscle that surrounds this lens works when you read or when you look at something. That muscle contracts and that muscle releases. So it's a big player in how well you see. But what's interesting about it is that muscle works when you're thinking. So, if you have your eyes closed, and if you're in some thought state or emotional state, this muscle is working and can contract and cause a change in your focus. Now let me take it a step further. If this muscle stays contracted all the time, the more contracted it is, the further your vision comes in, the less you can see clearly far away. That's an important thing with eyes. So I'll say it again. The tighter this focusing muscle gets, as if you're reading, the blurrier things are far away. So in training the eyes, one of the goals, if you're having trouble seeing far away, is to get that muscle to release an abnormal amount, more than it would normally release in a typical state. So that's one of the main ways you train distance vision. The opposite is true. If you can't see clearly up close, you've got to do something to get that muscle to contract more so you can focus in closer. Does that make sense to everybody? Clear? Okay. Yeah. That muscle is called the ciliary muscle, C-I-L-I-A-R-Y. Okay. So, next step is they did an experiment many years ago. They put a monkey in a contained vessel so that the furthest the monkey could see was 13 inches on one eye, and then they paralyzed the other eye so that that muscle couldn't contract. So the monkey had one eye that was focused, contracting at 13 inches. The other eye was paralyzed, it couldn't focus. The eye that was focusing continuously got stuck, and that monkey became nearsighted after, I don't know the length of time the monkey was looking at that. So what happens is they measured that with too much contraction of the muscle, this chamber expands and the eye stretches. And later evidence is saying even that the cornea can bulge. Okay? So, nearsightedness in particular, and astigmatism, seems to relate to how much tension there is in the eye, how much focusing, and how much release. And it also seems to be affected by your thoughts and emotions, because this muscle, the ciliary muscle, is the same one, is innervated by the unconscious nervous system. Okay? The muscles that move your eyes are voluntary. The ciliary focusing muscle is involuntary until you make it conscious, which you can do. So why it is almost 10:02. Why don't we take a break? So, welcome back. While this diagram is up, this is the lens. This is the part that frequently gets less transparent with age, and it's commonly called a cataract. And also, typically with aging, this lens gets thicker. It keeps growing throughout life. So what happens anywhere between 35 and 50 is that you need more energy to focus this lens for when you're reading. And that's why so commonly people start wearing reading glasses, bifocals, because it takes more energy. And the first check is a prescription for that, which typically gets the eyes weaker. So a month later after you've worn it, usually it's harder yet. Anybody have that experience? So at the first signs of losing ability to read and focus, we use the opposite effect. The opposite effect is you train the eyes, and if you already have a distance problem, if you're nearsighted, you undercorrect the distance to boost the near, and you train the eyes to make it stronger. And that doesn't mean that you have perfect near vision. I mean, this is an ongoing process working with your eyes. Sometimes it never reaches perfection. In fact, many people have healed their eyes and still have poor eyesight without some sort of correction. How could that be? Because their eyes work normally. They've got power in their eyes. Their two eyes work together. When they look at something, they can follow it, they can track it, they can perceive it quickly, they can react quickly. They've got really good vision. They may not have perfect eyesight. And what's more important really is good vision. And I love also having good eyesight as much as you can. So anyway, so this is the common thing that happens with everybody. They tend to lose some of their ability to focus up close. If you're nearsighted, though, and you take off your correction or glasses, your vision usually stops short and you could see clearly. How many people do that to see clearly? Up close, right, okay. Let's move on to the next slide. Can you read that? That's a tough one. The muscles of your eyes are contracting and relaxing in response to your thoughts and images, even when your eyes are closed. Just a reminder. So be careful about what you're thinking. Okay. Next slide, please, Brian. Okay. So, these are common refractive problems. Myopia is nearsightedness, hyperopia is farsightedness, astigmatism, which is a condition where the eye has two focuses. Could be one there, one behind the eye, one here, one there, one here. So let's talk a little bit about them, and to give you some food for thought about how to work with them, okay? Let's talk about nearsightedness. We already said that focusing muscle tension can create nearsightedness. If it stays too tight for too long, the eye can stretch, the cornea can bulge, the muscles don't release, you lose your distance vision. You get a pair of eyeglasses, it reinforces the position that the eyes are in, and if the behavior still stays the same way, what happens? It gets worse, and that happens typically until the eye can no longer stretch or change shape. Then what sometimes happens, and hope to God it doesn't, is if the eye continues to stretch, it tears, and that's a retinal detachment. So the most worrisome concern health-wise is that if the eye continues to stretch due to excess muscle tension, the retina tears. And highly nearsighted people are more prone to that for that reason. Nearsightedness, which is that common, prevalent epidemic, usually relates to, I think it's a lot societal. There's a lot of things. It's not a one simple issue. There's genetic predispositions to nearsightedness. So genetics is involved. Environment's involved, how you're using your eyes. Emotions are involved, because if the way your emotional system is tracking, if when you get emotionally upset or tight or contracted, if your ciliary muscles are contracted, it's like you're reading all day long without reading. So, would it pay to be working on your emotions doing EFT in the most global way? The answer is absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Nearsightedness usually goes along with a great attention to detail. It usually goes along with a propensity toward being a good analyst, linear, good left brain function. Usually there's emotionally almost all of the vision disorders have a relationship to fear, not wanting to see things, some sort of contraction that causes people to not want to look, and fear of being seen as well. So, what can you do EFT-wise for this kind of thing? There isn't one simple answer. I'll ask somebody when they come in frequently, what's your greatest fear? What a way to start. I don't ask that to everybody. I kind of feel like when I can ask that. And the responses will vary. One person recently was saying that her greatest fear is that she's just ruined her entire life because she had an affair, and her husband also had an affair, and she had a lot of guilt and shame about that and was feeling worthless. And her vision was bad. She wanted to go back to school. She couldn't concentrate. She couldn't read. Her eyes didn't work together. So we tapped on that issue, and for her that provided incredible relief. She was able to use her eyes together better. She was able to read. She was able to focus. We also trained her eyes to work as a team better, so we used physical exercises. Her eyesight was pretty good. That wasn't the issue, but she couldn't focus. She couldn't keep her eyes tracking and focusing on things, and she wanted to go back to school. So for her, working on the emotional aspects of things was a big bridge to getting her eyes to work. But I want to just reinforce that there isn't necessarily one type of emotional release that all of a sudden my vision's clear and stays that way. That's rarely something that I've seen. I wish it was. And everybody wants that. But it doesn't necessarily happen that way. Usually, there's a whole host of things that affect eyes and vision that you have to work with. Let's just talk a little bit about farsightedness. How many people are farsighted here? Farsightedness that you can't see clearly necessarily far away either. You have to work to focus to see far away, and it's even harder up close. Farsighted? Okay, farsightedness is an issue where it takes constant energy to see. I'm the king of farsightedness. 5 diopters on the right eye, 1 whole torqued eye, and about 250 on the left, which is a lot. And what it meant is that all my life growing up, because I never had my eyes really checked till I was older, was that basically in order to see clearly, it was too hard to focus one eye. I used only the other eye, and I had to work. I had to contract muscles all the time to see far away. So a farsighted person naturally their eyes want to focus behind the eye, which would make it blurry. And in order to see clearly, they've got to focus and bring the light in to the retina. And they have to use muscle energy to do that. Whereas a person with normal quote-unquote sight looks far away and the light focuses on the retina without any energy. So farsightedness is an energy problem. If you can manage to focus your eye, you've got to work it and constantly use energy to see. Farsighted people have more learning disabilities. They take longer to do things. They're slower to start. It takes more energy to do anything. They're working hard, us farsighted people, what we went through. So there's another part of farsightedness, which is also, it's another fear reaction, a survival reaction. It's like, push it away. No. No. Farsightedness. Don't want to look at those details. Farsighted people tend to not want to look at details as much. Doesn't mean you can't, but you've got to work harder to look at details if you're farsighted. How many people have astigmatism? Wow, astigmatism gone wild. So astigmatism means that the eye has 2 focuses. How come so many people would develop astigmatism? What's that about? But he said, well, I just have astigmatism. But he has astigmatism. Well, but astigmatism is really interesting to me. Astigmatism, if it's a myopic or nearsighted, it means that both focuses are in front of the eye. So you'd have one focus here, one there, but they're in front of the retina. It's a farsighted astigmatism, it's behind the eye. But astigmatism is really an attempt to be in 2 places at one time. Congratulations. Which is impossible at some levels. At other levels, maybe it's not. But so with astigmatism, it's trying to be in 2 places in one time. And the result is that things are blurry, sort of, because of the astigmatism. But the result is, perceptually now, went from the physical to the perceptual, is that people with astigmatism love to zone out. Their zoning out, spacing out stuff is so wonderful because they can go in and out of focus physically and mentally. So they're good at it. As a matter of fact, one of the problems that eye doctors have had in the past is if you correct the astigmatism, it's very disturbing. How many people have had problems they don't like their astigmatism correction? Anybody find it bothersome? Not bad, not many people. Couple, huh? Yeah. So when you have a lot of astigmatism, astigmatic people tend to be extremely creative. They have great imagery, very artistic. Astigmatic people have great inner lives, great daydreamers. So, in particular, in working with astigmatism, one of the things, in any way that you can do it, is getting the person to be present. Present visually, present mentally, because astigmatism and being present is a big deal. So that's a little hint with astigmatism. Okay. Let's move on a little bit. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about what do you really do if you can't see clearly far away, you're nearsighted. I want to give you some advice about how you deal with this real practically. One option without surgery is shaping the eye overnight. It's called orthokeratology. Recently it was on Tom Brokaw had it as the cutting-edge medical procedure of the year. I've been doing it for 30 years. But a company patented some sort of lens to do it, and they got out publicity, so it became the cutting-edge procedure. Actually, it is better because it's done more quickly and overnight. But it is one way to do it. Basically, a nearsighted eye, this is an exaggerated cornea. Overnight, you wear a lens that shapes it. The lens, by the way, has loads of oxygen going through it. It's made for that purpose. You take the lens off, the cornea has a normal shape, your vision improves a lot. So that gets the ball rolling. And then all of the things we spoke about, training the muscles to release and let go. I use lenses and prisms and other exercises, and there's many books and things you could do to learn about that. Nutritionally, you want to make sure that you're getting antioxidants in the body, eating green foods for circulation. Bilberry's real good in particular. So you train it, you shape it, and then emotionally, you want to work with whatever issues are going on with anybody. Whatever issues are going on. So even though I'm uncertain of the future, I completely love and accept myself, even though the vision's blurry. I mean, any place you want to go with anybody's issues can relate to. Whatever is causing their stress is where to start. And it seems like with nearsightedness in particular, being willing to be more seen is an issue. Being willing to be seen. That seems to always help. So when you are working with your own eyes or your own vision, if you want to shape the eyes using a lens that's really dramatic because it'll allow you to see without any glasses mostly, and then it also works where we could lead one eye a little bit and train the two eyes to work together so you'd be able to read and see far away. That's real good. If you don't like that idea and you like surgery, say, which is another option, and most people who've had surgery, by the way, have been very happy, which is interesting. Most people have been thrilled. The people who are not thrilled, though, will tell you never to do it because there are many miserable people as well. But mostly people have been happy if you're willing to take the risk. Even if you do that, if you have surgery or orthokeratology, you're still left with healing your vision because you're still a nearsighted or astigmatic or farsighted person who's got 20/20 eyesight. Do you know what I'm saying? Okay. So, so there's surgery, there's orthokeratology. These are the things that'll give you dramatic, clear vision without glasses. That's nice and it's beautiful, but if you don't need that, what you do is you reduce prescriptions. You train the eyes and start leading your eyes in the direction that you want, doing training. And this is also very good. Because if you don't do that, you continue to lose power in your eyes until there isn't any, and you've got all of these focal lenses going on, and you're moving your head around all the time trying to find the right place. And it's better to have your own. Yeah?
Does orthokeratology work for farsightedness?
The question was, does orthokeratology work for farsightedness? It does not. It can a little bit, but I don't like it for that. Nearsightedness and astigmatism, and also it has a beneficial effect where you could still read better than if you had, say, surgery to shape the cornea. Usually that knocks out the reading. Now, I do want to share, I personally wouldn't have the laser surgery done because I'm a chicken. I worry about things like that, even though many people have had it done and have been very happy. I've had 2 suicide attempts after eye surgery. One was a teacher who was in San Francisco. What happened was somehow the dominant eye was switched clarity-wise. So after the surgery, the non-dominant eye was seeing better. It had distorted his mind so much that he was hospitalized for a couple of months in Langley Porter. By the time I got to see him, the only thing, we thank God we were able to do something. We were able to fit a contact lens on his eye to get his eyes seeing normally. We trained his eyes, and he was doing okay. Last I heard from him, it's been a while. And there was another young man who was in his 20s who the result was pretty good. He was seeing 20/20, 20/25. He had a strong nearsighted prescription, -10, and he came in just feeling like he was looking through somebody else's eyes, and he just was distraught. Now, those are really extreme. I don't know how many other issues there are like that, but the other main concerns with surgery is just natural problems that even if it's done well, there could be halos, there could be islands of poor vision, and you don't quite know in the long run what's going to happen. And then, of course, you've got the problem of how you trade off. Either you make one eye for near, one eye for far, which they're not doing now because that could really be disturbing if you don't train your eyes. Or then you're wearing glasses for the computer. If you're doing a lot of close work, you're still wearing glasses all day. So there are those issues.
I have a question about that. Monovision. Could you talk about monovision and the pros and cons of it? I think that's related to what you just said.
It very much is. Yeah, monovision is where optically one eye is set up to lead far away and one eye is set up to lead up close, so that both eyes are working. Well, traditionally, if you came in with that problem or that way of seeing as a child, all of the red flags would go up, and you'd say, oh God, we've got to get both of these eyes working together. That brain is not going to develop right. That perception's going to be weird on one side. The depth perception's going to be off. Processing's going to be slower. There'll be confusion. So all of those things you'd immediately treat to get rid of that circumstance. Then as an adult, as a way to see, which is different because as an adult you've already had a lot of development. It's practical and you could see that way, but it still has the same effects. Monovision still has the same effects. You are processing, getting only half the information in. But here's the piece. You can lead one eye, but you want to train both eyes still to work together. So I use monovision a lot. I lead eyes as much as I can, but only at the point where they'll still work together. If you lead it too far, where the brain shuts one eye off completely and you knock out all the peripheral depth perception, I think it's a problem. So anybody who has monovision should be involved in still training their two eyes to work together, and that's my advice. And we're going to do something today, rather shortly, to work on that issue of getting two eyes to work better together.
Could I ask a secondary question to
Yeah.
that? Example, 3 years ago, my eyes were both seeing the same, minus 2.25. And then because I wanted to eliminate reading glasses, I
Right.
can see fine close up, but I put the distance prescription in my eyes, I can't see close up.
Right.
So the suggestion was use a lens that's minus 1.25 in the non-dominant eye so that you can read and see distant.
Right.
So I did that. What happened was my left eye then changed. So instead of being minus 2.25 like the right, it changed to minus 7.5. So what happened to my brain? And what happened to my emotions when that happened? That's my question.
It's a good question. It's a good question, but you certainly changed the pattern of seeing. And I don't know exactly what happened, but I think what I would be doing is I would be reducing the prescription on both eyes, even the far-seeing eye, because you can train that eye to
Obviously.
see clearer, as you can
Yeah.
see. And because probably, it's a possibility what's happened all the time is that that eye, was just tightened down, straining, and, contracted more. And all of a sudden it had an opportunity to relax a little bit. So you'd want to lead it even a little more, train your eyes to release more, and that'll make close vision even easier. The weaker the distance prescription, the better, the close vision is. So it's perfect to be training it. That would be your work with your eyes, to see how far you can come using still two eyes together, not completely eliminating the use of two eyes.